forum where everyone's involved. There's a lot of other volunteers. I can't name every single one of them. Nate has run the website. Thank you very much to all the candidates who have the opportunity to do so. Some people can't make it tonight. I just got a message my son's sick. So it happens to everybody. But at least, like I said, this gentleman here, you weren't able to make it last time. You were able to make it tonight. That's why we do 2 or 3 of them. So that way everyone has an opportunity to come. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to start off with 6 or 7 questions that we sent out a survey. And maybe everyone in this room didn't have access to that survey, but we tried to go door to door and make sure everyone had the ability to fill out the survey. And what we've done from that in the first 2 forms is try to compile 6 or 7 questions that seem to be kind of the deal breaker, one way or another, for members how they wanted to vote. So what we want to do is start out and give every candidate 30 seconds to a minute and kind of give their explanation of how they would go one way or another. After these questions are asked, this will be a short segment. We're going to open it up to the floor. You can ask questions and say, Candidate B, can you tell me why you felt this way? I don't see it that way. As a homeowner, I feel this way. And allow them the opportunity, or multiple candidates the opportunity to kind of explain themselves more in depth past 30 seconds to a minute. Does anyone have any questions so far?
Yeah. Is the entire board being re-elected? Or how many positions are open?
Great question. There's 5 board members currently in Cypress Lakes. 4 seats are up. So when you get the mailing that has the list of the candidates, there is 11 total candidates. 2 were unable to be here tonight because they had prior arrangements far before this was scheduled. So if there's anyone who's not here tonight, don't blame them for not being here. We only were able to come up with the 18th, I think a week, maybe a week and a half ago, before the last mailing went out. But we have 4 positions up. So if there's 11 total candidates on a ballot sheet sent to your home, you get to choose 4. So you get to choose 4 of these candidates in addition to the 3 that are not here tonight. I think, did anyone bring information to candidates that aren't here tonight?
I brought all those.
I know Paulette told me she had stuff that we can give out tonight. And we have Tricia Miner and Mandy Murphy, who's not here tonight. But we can also go to votecl.com and most of their information's up there. And there's emails you can directly contact them as well. Any other questions so far? All right, one thing to keep in mind is that these are not politicians up here, not that to my knowledge. They're volunteers. They're not all publicly spoke. So if they trip over the words a little bit, give them a little bit of slack. This is as nerve-wracking as it may be for you to ask a question. Imagine their point of view sitting behind this chair and answering the question. All the candidates have been given quite a bit of information about the financials, current contracts, bids, everything upcoming, so that if any of the 4 win, they have a head start to help govern the community in a direction they feel appropriate for whoever elects them. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with Rebecca. One of the questions that has been hot button in the community is currently we have a security company patrols our neighborhood approximately 40 hours a week, and I want to say it's 50 to 52 weeks a year. It's about $50,000. So as a budget item, that's already $50,000 on the 2013 budget. How do you stand when it comes to security versus an off-duty deputy, and even nothing? On our feedback for the survey, we had some people who selected neither.
I personally believe that we should have off-duty patrol people. The added cost, it goes into what they're able to do. A security guard can do as much as we can. They can, or in some cases even less, because if a person breaks into your house, you have the right to do whatever means necessary to disable, detain the individual until the police come. A security guard can only tell the intruder to stop, stay here, don't do anything. He cannot use any kind of weapon or anything. He works on behalf of us, and it kind of limits him to what he's able to do. He can call the police just the same as we can, but then you have to wait for the police to get there, just as it would if we call the police. So for the extra money that might be involved, I feel very strongly that it would be, in addition to the fact that we do have several officers that live in different communities, it might be in our better interest to examine that avenue more closely and do a comparison to see what the additional cost might be.
And what I'm going to do is once we hit 10 seconds up, I'm going to raise my hand so you guys have time just to wrap up. Okay? There.
I'm not in favor of bringing the police in yet. I would look at what we've already got. Plus, I would see what the community feels. Because if it's going to be added cost, then that's going to be more that's going to be put on you. So I would first try to find out what the different costs are and what could happen with that. But I would first want to see what the community thought before I sit here and decide whether we're going to have police or we're going to have security guards.
Don?
Hi, I'm Don Hanson. I certainly would like to welcome you all here from, on behalf of all the candidates that we have. This gives you a chance to see what we have, and it gives us a chance to talk to you guys to see what you'd like to have. As far as the security, deputies versus security, I think that maybe we can come up with a different plan, a different way of doing things, maybe look at it a little bit differently. Maybe a combination of the two, or maybe not even either one of them. But we need to find out what you guys would like to do and take that to the next level, the next step. There's a lot of security devices out there that do not need anybody to actually be on site out there. We can do a lot of camera surveillance. That's been done before. I went to a seminar and they had a lot of information on that. So I think we just need to investigate that, see what you guys can do. Thank you, James.
I think we need to look at the dollar figures first. I've toyed around with a few different things. I've made a few phone calls. Called Orlando, downtown Orlando, called the sheriff's department. I'm getting a lot of different answers to the same question, such as if they have to leave, whether they will be charged when they're off-site. Some of them are saying yes, and another person I'll talk to will say no. So until I have that information, I don't want to make a decision, my opinion, until it's cleared up. The other thing is, I would really need to know if they leave the development, and how often they get calls in this area. So I do want to see some historical things. And then lastly, if we are staying with the security company here, and it's going to be up to you, my opinion is I think we should go with deputies, but if we are staying with the security company here, I would like to see some kind of reporting from them. I haven't seen any reporting. I know they used to get reports and then they can't stop.
Thank you, James. Buck.
Good. Welcome, everyone. Foster Anthony. As far as security versus deputies, I've been in this community a little over 11 years now, and we've experienced both. We've had security in the past. We've also had Orange County out here as well. There are pros and cons to both. It's going to boil down to cost, and because cost is what's going to drive everything. It's going to drive the decision within the neighborhood here. And if there's going to be an impact to us going with something that's more costly and going to drive up dues, that's something I think the community needs to weigh in on. And I think we need, whoever we need to get some reporting back from those individuals. In the past, we've not gotten good reporting back from some of the agencies. The reports were just a one-pager, we rode the streets. Other companies were gotten very detailed type of reports. So I think we need to weigh out the cost, weigh out what the community would like to give, and what we're going to get for it.
Hi, Kathy Kalish from Ashford Grand. Again, speaking to the fact that we've had both, I think that what we need to do is look at what may not have worked in the past with deputies, officers. Personally, I feel that they would be more effective. Security may have a place, but given the scope of what happens here, I'm not so sure that they can actually do anything that would help us. I think we need to have the first thing I would want to do is put together a task force of residents and resident law enforcement officers coming together to perhaps look at what's happened in the past, get records from the Sheriff's Department, get records from our security company for the last 2 years, evaluate what's been happening, where it's been happening. Is there anything we could have done to prevent it? Is there anything we can do to prevent it in the future? And use that information to help us decide what the benefit is to having deputies versus having security. Maybe it isn't a matter of letting go, but I do think that the community needs to be the ones to make those decisions. We need to have some input from everyone who is affected directly by it.
Michael?
I would like to see deputies patrolling the streets of Cypress Lakes. I've spoken to residents about their concerns, and they've addressed situations even beyond what people would think about, such as children walking home from school, and folks out at certain people commuting at certain times of day and whatnot. I believe that we can have a hybrid solution for the areas that the deputies wouldn't necessarily be able to manage well, like in here in the clubhouse. As Dawn said, there are a lot of technological abilities out there we could use for surveillance, for alarming, and we don't need to rely on private security because it can be a liability if it's not managed the right way. I think I've heard more negative than positive about the private security, and I for one would like to get rid of it.
Linda?
Linda Stowe, in Oxford, and the question being deputies versus security, or no security. The first thing you need to ask yourself, do we really need security? If the answer is yes, from the community, which is what is on the survey, I think most people chose to have deputies, then I would say go with deputies. But you understand your tax dollars pay for them to patrol in here anyway. So we're really double paying. And I've had some residents say that when they called for a deputy to come, 911 or whatever, that it took them a long time to get here. So we're going to have to all be vigilant and watch out for everybody's property in there. But if I had to choose, I would choose deputy over security, but it's going to cost more if you're going to get the same coverage.
Great, thank you. The next question that seems to be probably the most often asked question is, if you can clarify your stance on a long-term or short-term bulk contract for Cypress Lakes. As everyone knows, and maybe you don't know, a lot of people haven't noticed in the past, but currently each lot pays, it was $36, I think it might be $38 now. Every month, your dues, $38, we'll just say that's the number today, goes to the HOA, and the HOA pays on your behalf Comcast. Now, the HOA and other board of directors had any dealing with this, but as of December, that contract ends, and I believe it was a 10-year contract. So one of the questions that have been most probably asked is, are you in favor of renewing or having any bulk contract for cable, or are you against any contract for such things as cable? And I'll start with Derek this time, since start with Rebecca last time.
I would first have to see what the community thought. I'm not really up to date on the particular contract. I know it's supposed to expire, but I'd like to see if anything was going to be there to replace it. I think it would be an individual issue if we decided not to continue the contract. But I think it's something that the board would probably need to take a look at in conjunction with the community to see whether or not they want to keep that or to let it go.
Thank you. One thing I want to add too is if you feel the candidates before you said everything we feel, say I agree with this person, that person, and you can save the minute and we'll keep moving forward. Done.
The cable contract was something that we inherited from the developer. And since that's the case, we didn't have any decision on it. So basically, my stand is it's got to go. This is killing us financially. And when I called Comcast several months ago, this could go up to as high as $69.95 without you controlling anything. And it would peak at that point unless they wanted to raise it. This thing can go raised unmanageable, so it has to go. Any other bulk contract that you get into, you really got to look at what you're doing in that contract, because one mistake will cost you, just like we did here. This cable contract has to go. And if I'm voted in, I'm going to be at that attorney's office the next day.
Okay.
We spoke a few times about the cable contract already. Like I said before, it wasn't the contract that was the bad thing, it was the details of the contract. I personally would get rid of it completely. I still think there's ways that Cypress Lakes could benefit from having Bright House or having Comcast or whoever come in and do something of a co-op with us. So we would get the the discounts, but we wouldn't be tied to a contract. And it wasn't a 12-year prior to that. I did the calculations before, and I believe we spend somewhere about 560-something thousand a year. And if you just do the very, very quick math and divide it by the homes, it's going to save you, by getting out of this, something about like $450-something odd per resident per year off their dues, just by eliminating the contract.
Thank you very much.
As far as the contract goes, it's, like you said, it was a 12-year contract that we all got signed up to, whether or not we really wanted it or not. We really didn't have a chance to weigh in on it. That wasn't the developer who did that. There are some who like Comcast, there's some who don't like Comcast. But we're all paying for it. We said it was 12 years. Where December of 13 came from, I don't know. I thought this contract would have been completed sometime in January of this year time frame.
December 13th is the date that Beeline gave me. I asked them for physical proof, and they haven't provided it yet. They're waiting on Comcast to provide it to them before they forward it to me. But December 13th is digital information they've given them.
Okay. Well, we've had a lot of debate with that within the lawyers, I guess, is what I was pointing that up to. I would, okay, I'm sorry.
10 seconds.
I would be for getting rid of the contract first off. Let's start fresh. Let's get what the neighborhood wants. What feedback you all like. We could have several different cable companies. They could be satellite companies. We could have a combination thereof or no contract at all. I think it belongs to whatever the community wants.
I think I'll be quick. I agree completely with James and Don. I don't like the idea of any long-term contracts whatsoever. Everything should be renewable every year. If there is an option, I think James was talking once before about an option for putting some bulk items together for people that are interested in opting in. If you had the option to opt in and opt out, I think that's fine. But for myself, having had this Comcast for 3 years now, I am so ready to be rid of it. I cannot wait to make my own decision, make my own choices, and be able to come up with the best price for myself. So that would be a no.
I'm currently a Bright House customer, so I am double paying for my cable right now. I am happy in double paying for my cable. I do not like Comcast. But regardless of that, if it were the other way around, there should not be a contract for bulk cable service in this community. Again, it was an artifact from the developer. Moreover, to go forward in the future, a lot of these contracts are entered voluntarily by associations in order to get upfront payouts for the community to possibly solve problems. I, for one, think that the money we save from it, we could utilize to address our biggest financial issue, being the lack of reserves for funding the community projects and capital maintenance that needs to be done. That's a big opportunity for us, and I believe that's where we can get our money for it.
I don't think there should be any bulk cable contracts or any other long-term contracts for the community, period. I think everybody can make their own decisions, and there are a lot of people, like Michael said, they're double paying because they're still paying for Comcast in their dues, whether they have Comcast or not. And some houses, I know a few, they can't even get Comcast. So they are paying anyway. So I'm against any kind of long-term contract.
I agree with everybody down the line here. I currently have Bright House and we have Comcast prior, but I do believe that we should look at going into different avenues. Aside from that, cable is going to be something of the past fairly soon. It already is in many areas. So I think entering into a long-term contract simply from the common sense standpoint really doesn't make a lot of sense, especially with the technology that's out there. Cable was the forerunner, and now the technology has caught up, and we have so many different opportunities. I really think that we should look into those and do bundling or whatever. But I do believe that the community should weigh in on this, and we should, look to them to see what their individual needs are.
Thank you. We're going to switch up the form just a little bit. Rather than ask all these questions, does anyone from the audience have any questions specifically to bulk cable contracts, security deputy?
Are we going to get any money back if we get rid of the cable thing? Or you said if you wanted to.
Yeah, I can address that to a point, yeah. From what I understand, if we terminate the cable contract because there's no reason to have an assessment for cable anymore, the dues have to immediately drop because we're basically not paying for that. What we can do with that money, though, and the way we can work around it temporarily, is if we institute a special assessment for a period of time that keeps the dues at that level for a defined amount of time, that money then, whatever $30, $40 per resident or per property per quarter, goes directly into the reserve fund. And the reserve study is not pretty. It recommends increasing dues significantly to catch up. So, I didn't know I had 30 seconds of this, but I'll finish by saying that there is a way around it, and we just have to be careful in terms of language of saying assessment, special assessment, not to scare people. This is going to be good for everyone.
And was that along the lines of the answer you were looking for?
So basically, we're going to have no cable and still pay the same dues as what you said.
I think, well, how it works is the HOA is nothing but an intermediary. So for example, the HOA is currently in a contract with Comcast. If I'm wrong, please interrupt me. It's currently in a contract with Comcast. The dues are assessed to each lot. The HOA receives the dues and they pay the cable contract on your behalf. Comcast in turn gives you cable to your home. If the Comcast cable contract no longer exists, the HOA has no right to assess your home for cable. Now, they could assess you for something else. They could say, we want to raise money for a splash pad or replace the slide or anything else. But they could not assess you specifically for a line item that says cable.
But he was saying that we're not going to ever see that money back to go somewhere else.
Not ever,
No,
but we're in
never.
a position right now where we need to develop some savings, basically. We're kind of at a deficit as far as savings goes for emergencies for the community. So people are suggesting that if we keep the dues where they are for a set amount of time, like 6 months to a year, to use that money to save for our own security, then after that, maybe we'd see a change in our
Is
dues.
that what he was saying? I'm sorry.
Yes.
So you're not saying indefinitely time that
No, the special assessment has to have a specific time frame, 6
But we
months,
are in
a
a
year,
position where
whatever.
we could use that money to save money
It'll
for our
only be
own
a temporary,
security.
it'll just be a temporary.
It would be temporary to
That's
solve
why I
the
wanted to
problems.
try that.
And just,
That's my best layman's.
Yeah, that makes sense.
and I want to help for those who may not understand. Reserve is like a sinking fund. There's Dave Ramsey does a financial report. He calls it sinking fund. We all know that your roof needs replaced in 20 and 30 years. So if you put $10 away each month, by the time you get 20, 30 years, you've got the cash in the bank to replace your roof. The reserve is the exact same thing. We expect an asset to fail in a certain time period, whether it be you're paving the parking lot, tennis courts, this roof, or anything inside of here. It's the exact same thing. You're saving up so that when it occurs, you're not assessing people. The money is currently there. The reserve study that was completed, I believe it was August of this year or October, clearly outlines what's needed, what's funded, what's underfunded, what's overfunded. If anyone wants that, I can give you a link for that as well.
Is there anything left in the reserves, or there's nothing?
There's money in reserves. I can get the exact estimate by the time this is over.
So my
But it was
question
depleted, it was depleted, it's being replenished
and
now.
it's depleted because of the people that aren't paying in, is that why? it's
It was
depleted?
being used to pay other things.
Right, we have lack of, I mean, there's supposedly X amount of dollars that haven't been paid by several of the homes, is that correct?
The dues for cable and such, everything was paid, whether the people are paying or not, yeah.
The deficit is because of the foreclosures, the people who didn't pay. It's been a pretty difficult 2 or 3 years.
And just to finish on your note, I think that in Florida, if a home goes into bankruptcy and you try to collect from the bank on the house, you can't collect more than 12 months, I believe, is the law. I could be wrong. So if you have someone who doesn't pay for 3 years, you may be able to collect that total. So you may go for 12 months.
Okay, I have a question about rentals, but that's for later, you guys haven't discussed that yet. The
Okay.
security, you were talking about automatically, if we go with the police versus what they have now, it's automatically gonna go up, and we're automatically gonna have to pay extra dues. I don't understand that.
Not necessarily, there's a way of offsetting, there's a certain amount already spent on security,
Right.
and whether or not we want to spend, get 50 hours out of a security guard, or 35 productive hours out of a deputy, you can kind of weigh the difference. That's my, again, my suggestion was the task force to find out when we need it, where we need it, and why we need it. We can very easily narrow down what our needs are.
If
and then
somebody
decide what
mentioned it
goes
would
next.
go up, we'd have to pay for it.
Right.
But no, where I was before, there was always something that may cost a little more, something we're gonna get rid of and cut down. There was, like you said, you don't want long-term contracts because this one's charging too much. We have somebody better that's gonna charge less. They bid in and there, you save some money, you can spend it here now.
Keeps their pencil sharp too. If they have to renew every year, they're not going to sit there and expect they're going to give us bad service.
Get
We're
lax.
going to renew.
And on Orange County's website, the current rate is $35 for an off-duty deputy. So I think, does anyone know, I think it's 20 for security, 26 an hour, I think we currently pay for security. So I think that's what they're talking about, the difference, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, is that if you want the same amount of coverage for hours, you do to go up. But if you want just a deputy difference, you may get less coverage. I think it's probably.
Yeah, but I think it's right what he said, you have to look into it a little further, because I know I've been told by a couple of police officers that we're not charged, but the neighborhood I came from, they did get charged. When the police officer left, they still got charged for that time. So it's
I think
something
it
that
really depends on where it's out from the people that are speaking. I think Orange County, all the answers I'm getting is we wouldn't be charged. But if you talk to OPD, you would be charged. So I don't know if it's by district, I need to do more research, and that was one of the things, I don't have a concrete answer, so I wasn't comfortable.
What do you mean OPD?
The downtown.
Orlando Police Department.
We're unincorporated, so OPD does not patrol here.
I mean, I live right down the road, and I would assume we'd have the same people. It's Orange County.
Orange County.
No, I lived in Orange County, I lived by East Lake, is where I lived, and it happened there. That's
Oh, I
why.
see what you're saying.
So
You're saying
that's
that
what I'm saying,
when they left
same
in that area.
people. Yeah.
Well, previously, when we had Orange County here, they did not charge us when they went off-site.
Okay.
They went off the spot and they went on to whatever.
Yeah, we're gonna verify that.
Right.
Nate, you got a question?
Are we still answering the board, or asking the board questions?
This is only due to bulk contract and security.
I'm sorry?
Just bulk contract and security right now.
Well, the bulk contract, I mean, you kind of touched on the reserves. You want to shelf that for later? I mean, I have a question about the reserves. You were talking
We'll do
about...
that later. I
Okay.
don't even have it on this list, so that'll be a whole different.
Where, you said it's 40 hours a week, right now they're currently being utilized for security.
$26 an hour, I think it's
But did you say like 40 hours a week are in the community?
currently to the contract, it's 40 hours, if I remember correctly, and I think we pay vacation.
Well, I mean, like, I've never seen them. My question is, first of all, like, do they have certain set hours? Is it random? And are they supposed to patrol the entire community? Because
Yes, they have hours that vary. You know, the supervisor gives them hours.
I guess
come
I'm
out.
saying, like, if I needed to, I didn't even know that we had security that are around here, honestly.
That's part of the problem, I think, with security, is you never know who you have to call. They all have their own different number. We've had 3 different guys in the last, 6 months,
Yeah.
and you may be calling with the old guy. We don't know.
And then my
There's one
other,
member that's published out there right now who is the correct guy.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were paying something, I didn't know that, plus I don't really see them, but I understand you want to switch things up, but, second of all, maybe later we can get this, like, do you give the community, I mean, the community, but like, there's been, I don't know, 10 break-ins, 3 car thefts, I mean, one of my communities.
And see, that's the problem I've had with security all along, is that we don't get any feedback. You know, we don't get any feedback
Or
at
even
all.
if you call, somebody calls the regular cops to come and investigate, I mean, is there any like community report?
There's a website.
Oh, there's a website.
Yeah, you can go online and look at what Orange County has done. You can find out where they've been dispatched to and what has occurred.
You can even go to a
But as far as
website
the-
called spotcrime.com and it will send you an email every single day that tells you.
Our area.
And you can get within so many miles of your house, so anything like within 5 miles.
But the security folks that we have had, I have to say that they have, the reports that I used to see when I was a board member were pretty good reports. What we got back from Orange County was very sketchy, so if we did go with Orange County and went with police officers like that, I would like us to have some very clear guidelines on what we expect in a report. I mean, we used to get things back, just say, well, we patrolled Cypress Lakes, we went down this street and this street, versus
This
what we
is having them,
got.
both of them, so we can be we can have the knowledge, what's going on in the community, like somebody down the street,
Well, that would help in if you had posted on like a website.
A centralized, right,
Yes, where there could be everything on it.
Yeah, okay.
The other issue is you're at 1,268 homes here, and they're not going to hit every home every night. So unless we really expand a little bit more on the neighborhood watch, or just maybe do 2 with less hours, because you're getting more coverage, even though it's going to be fewer hours, that might help. There's all different ways to look at it, but for you to kind of expect them to hit every single day, it's not going to happen every single day.
No, I don't expect them to do that, I was just wondering where it was, and then once again, like, are there any numbers on what kind of crimes are happening in our areas of those
I think that should be the entire board.
That's why I think we need to have some sort of task force in the community. There needs to be a central place. The neighborhoods, each of the individual villages have to have their own sort of neighborhood watch going. But to bring that together, if we had a community task force that was collecting all of that information and disseminating all the information, if they were getting it from the sheriff's office or security or whoever we're using, then they could pass it along and say, this is happening on Friday nights around 3 to 4 a.m. Be watchful for that. I think it would be helpful to have that information on the website as well.
Yes.
I think your concern may be also, I want to see what I'm paying for. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, that, yes, and people, like I said, I've only lived here for a few months, and 6 months or so, I know certain communities have certain problems, but it's like, oh, wow, there's another rash of car theft, or people breaking in cars and snatching for or something, I don't know, just to share that information as well, and sometimes they do get reports, but I understand this is a larger community one came from, so.
It's still, the reports that we've gotten do not get disseminated to anyone here. They come back to the security people, they come to the board, and they die. That's it. So I've been out here 11 years. Those reports have never been shared with the community at all. No.
I used to get them, but I was like on an advisory board at that time, and I requested them so I could see what was going on. Some of the officers made excellent reports. I mean, the one I always loved to read his because he printed it and you could read it. Some of the others were not so readable. But that's as far as it got. Nobody else saw it.
And moving Daniel real quick, yeah.
I made a request with Leland to get security laws for the last 2 months. And according to this the other night, and this has been for 2 months ago, when there was an issue with security, the security company refuses to even answer Leland. That was from Vanessa the other night. They haven't answered her phone calls, they haven't answered her emails, nothing. My question to her is, when is this board going to get off their backside and violate the contract and end it because they are not holding up their end? She said December was the last reports they got. Part of the issue, and I have a question for all of you, is the hours they put out for security here are totally mismanaged. You don't need somebody here at 6 o'clock at night till midnight when people are coming and going from work, people are moving around. There's been no community involvement in deciding when it happens. And you can look on Orange County Sheriff's Office website, they will tell you, I think this area is 22A. If you look it up, they'll tell you everything they responded to. If you don't tell the deputies what you want them to do, you give them a guideline, you tell them go patrol, that's what we're going to do. If they don't see anything, they're going to write, I don't see anything. We need to give them something to do.
Just a real quick question.
What would you do as a board to get rid of security that won't respond to our mandate?
I would immediately put them in breach of the contract. I would go to either our lawyers, well, after looking at the contract first, go through the contract, go to our lawyers. Sometimes we have to spend money on our lawyers. I'm not saying all the time because there's a question down here that we'll get into later, which I completely disagree with spending money, but there is going to be times where we're going to have to use our lawyers to send the proper notices, and I believe that if we don't enforce it with them, they're just going to walk all over us, just like Comcast has. Comcast should have been done with it.
I think all of these guys have made it really clear that they really want to take a new look, fresh eyes at all of our big contracts, and really delve into them and find out if they're really beneficial or not.
Also, Christine had a question too.
Yeah,
I wanted to respond to Danny. He said that Leland said security would refuse to give them reports. I've also been told that Leland told them they did not want the reports. So that there's another conflict there. We don't know. We don't know.
So, and I'm newer to the community, so I'm a little bit behind the 8 ball here, but
both of these questions, most everyone's answer has been, I want the input from the community. And my first interaction was last year with the whole slide situation, which to my knowledge basically just died when we took the slide down so no one else, nobody would get hurt. And there was never any community, this is the right thing to do for the whole community. And I guess what I'm looking for is what kind of time frame would be set on these things. I don't want to sit in this room a year from now and have the same conversation. We're gathering information from the community. We want to do what's best for the community. Well, we need to have set times and dates of what does that look like. So I guess from you all, I'd like to know what your forecast of that would be.
And your expectations are for everything together, or?
Well, no, I mean, really, I would expect that most things would be together. Like, obviously one would be easier than the other. It sounds like the cable's a pretty done deal, where security does need more involved. Looking at
how is this on your priority list, the bulk cable contract, that type of thing?
Well, so bulk cable, right, how are you gathering information? I don't want to hear in 3 months we're still gathering information. I want to know what the information is. Let's make a decision and, be done.
I'll address, one of the issues that I heard from the current board was, well, we don't meet every month because there's nothing to talk about. So, okay, there's a lot to do in this community. I mean, a monthly meeting may not be enough. It's probably the best thing, but it may not be enough. My thinking, and a number of the other candidates feel this way too, is that it should be doled out to groups of residents in committees, ones who want to volunteer to meet. They go over specific things, they prepare specific things, they get the input from people who are actually there, as opposed to just sitting there listening to the board talk amongst each other about whether they have or have not received an email, received a document, or read a document. If we're all prepared beforehand, and we all have the information, and solicit input from outside, and get the committee structure together, we'll have a lot of people working from the ground up to actually make things happen.
Yeah, that is exactly what I was going to say in terms of, I was one of those that started in 2009, coming to board meetings, very quickly getting frustrated and not being able to say anything, not being able to have any kind of input whatsoever, seeing decisions being made without any regard for what's going on with the community, what we wanted. Number one, we need to utilize an asset that we have that is just sitting there. It looks so archaic, it's almost sad. Our website should, and we are paying for this to be maintained every month, but there is just nothing there. There is no information there whatsoever. The website is an awesome opportunity for the community to know exactly what the board is going to be looking at, for you to put input in, to say, I'm noticing that something's going wrong with this wall over here. Can you guys start looking at that? It gives the board an opportunity to see what's going on from the residents, because we can't be in every single village all the time, and to start putting out an agenda. This is what's coming up for the next board meeting. If you have thoughts, if you have something you want to say, if you have some information that you want to share, please come to the meeting. This is what it's going to be. Announcing it more than 48 hours in advance, I think is just reasonable. But I think that's how you do it. You put the information out there in any way that you can, and you get as much feedback as possible through committees, organizing the people that are going to put the information together and present it at the board meetings.
My biggest concern is going to, I would say 90 days would be, in order to do all your research, 3 board meetings should be more than enough to make a ruling on any contract, unless you're looking at some type of thing for an engineer to the pool and they can't get back to you on something like that. But the other issue is, you look around you right now. This is, even though these are all the people that are here for this is not the majority of Cypress Lakes. So other than the website, there needs to be something sent out to the rest of Cypress Lakes to say, it's very hard to vote on something when you have 50 people here only, and they may be the most vocal and the most, that might be the majority at the time, but there's still, 1,300 homes out there. So I think we really need to get the rest of the community involved and bring them back into it, whether it be with letters, and then we need to do some votes on things, as opposed to just arbitrarily making that decision.
So far, your question's being answered to your satisfaction, the way you're looking?
Yeah.
Okay. Rebecca, I'm so glad you come next.
In conjunction with yours, I've been here at Cypress Lakes for 2 years, roughly. And I have visited several neighborhoods and talked to lots of people. And at this point in time, I'm not saying that's not a good idea, just sending out information, but we have to do a lot of warming up to people, because a lot of people are very, to the point of hostility they're so disgusted that they're selling their homes. And that is terrible. That is definitely not what we want to be seeing in a possible $1 million plus community. I mean, to be that disgusted and that horribly upset that you're going to sell your house and leave and go somewhere else. I feel that we need to warm up to the community, and I think the first step is to having us on board and really dealing into things and then sending that out to the community. Perhaps then that might change things a little bit. And then we can go about sending out letters about things on a regular basis. I think it's going to take a while before people think we're serious.
Okay, last question on these two topics, and then we're going to move to the next one.
Okay, I just had a question. Everyone's mentioning Neighborhood Watch, which is great, and I think having a Neighborhood Watch would be wonderful. And everyone's so concerned about the crime in the neighborhoods and this, car break-in and this house break-in and this and that. However, a couple months ago, there was a Neighborhood Watch meeting, and barely anyone showed up. So I'm just wondering if all these people are really concerned, or if they're just hyping and they want to make a big deal out of nothing because they really don't care because they don't show up for the Neighborhood Watch or really want to partake. Mind you, I understand, anytime you have anything, they, people are busy and different things. However, it's just, and I know there was representation from the Handstones and from the Collisions and different things at the Neighborhood Watch meeting, but it was only literally a handful of people.
So what is your specific question?
Everyone's throwing Neighborhood Watch out there, so I want to know how they're planning on doing it. I know the Collisions and Hanson are both going out, planning on doing it in their own neighborhoods, which I commend and I think is wonderful. However, what about the other neighborhoods?
Well, I can't speak for the other neighborhoods, but I know that we're doing it in Windsor, my wife and I. And there's been a few problems that we've come across, and one is communication and trying to get this information out. I think the other thing is the unfortunate Trayvon Martin situation. We've been very careful to put on a Neighborhood Watch that the association is not involved at all with that Neighborhood Watch. We've been very careful to do that, but I still think there's some hesitancy in the community. Now, the more people that we talk to, the more they start to come out. So I think in time, hopefully we'll get the numbers that we want. I think we've got one in Oxford, if we have one in Windsor. I think there's a couple other communities that have it. And I think as these communities see this grow, then they'll respond to it. It is a good program.
Don, can you explain more? I think a lot of people have the misconception that the Neighborhood Watch is guys walking around the neighborhood with walkie-talkies and talking to each other. And like you said, the Trayvon Martin thing. Can you clarify how the program really works?
Well, basically, what we had is we had a North County sheriff come in here and give us a demonstration on it. But basically, the bottom line is that all we're doing is from in our house watching the neighborhood. We're watching our neighbors across the street, getting familiar with their cars, their habits, their kids, and everything else that goes on. When you see something suspicious, you might want to come out and investigate. I had the neighbors, they had a moving truck in front of their house at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I thought, well, that's a good way. Are they taking a picture in or out? But they were home, they were getting a delivery. This is the type of thing that you want to watch for. Take down your license plate number if you're not sure. But, don't get up in somebody's face or anything. It's just a watch. And if you're in doubt, dial 911. Don't be afraid to do that.
I just want to say one quick thing to Christine's point. I'm seeing some faces here that I've not seen. We came in 2009. One of the first things that we did to try to get involved was my husband took my father to a Neighborhood Watch meeting, thinking it was a way of getting him out into the community and getting to know some of the people. He walked away from it feeling a little dejected, certainly rejected. There wasn't a lot of information other than this is what we did, this is how many trespass warrants we issued, this is how many membership cards we took away, this is how many people no longer have access to the pool because this whatever violation they did. It was basically, this is how well we're doing, we've got it covered, don't you worry about it, we don't need participation, we don't need anyone coming in and helping us out, we've got it under control. I think a little bit too much of that over the last few years has made people wary of going out and trying to get involved. I'm seeing faces here that I have not seen before that have also been shut down and been told that they could handle it, that they didn't need to be involved, that the community doesn't need to be involved. It may start out slow, but I do think that with continued effort, at producing neighborhood watches and producing security meetings and things like that, I think we'll start seeing attendance go up. We're seeing more people in this room than I've ever seen before. So I think there's only just progress to be made from there.
Yeah, I think our first one had 40+ people, and I think the second one had 61, if I counted
That's right.
correctly.
When you feel as though you're getting hurt and something's happening, you want to join in, you want to be a part of it.
Because there may not be as large a number tonight, if you remember, someone may not want to do the same thing 3 times. They worry about the candidates. So this is just the third opportunity. Finish up, give me 20 seconds, Linda, so we'll move on to the next one.
I just wanted to tell you, Oxford does have a neighborhood watch, and what it is, it's about six houses in a block, is what they call it, and you have a block captain. And if you have any issues or something going on, you call the block captain.
Right,
I know, I have called neighbors across the street who had left their garage door up all night, which I know they never do that. So it was about 2 in the morning, so I went ahead and called them. I said, I'm sorry to wake you up, but did you know your garage door was up? They did not. So they went and put the garage door down. So that's all it is. It's just watching out for each
Right,
other.
I know it is. It's just, I don't feel like there's a lot of interest in the community in it, but the community seems to be.
Not
You
yet.
have to keep on. You have to keep on because at first in Oxford, it took a while to get everybody signed up, and it's been there for about 3 years, I think now. So
It's two-way communication too. The sheriff's department will contact the liaison will contact the block captains and pass information back down into the community. You know, watch out for this, or there's been a series of break-ins, or it's a good program.
And ultimately, it's only as good as if the people, again, with what Rebecca said, if they trust you, if they trust what the board of directors will do. You've got to start building it at the bottom end, and I think it'll come eventually as we go out and be honest and be direct with people.
If you guys think of any more questions to address this, we'll do it right at the
Can I
end.
just say one thing? Thank you. And just to point out what you said, I've lived in here since 2010. I didn't know about Comcast. I have a friend in the community who told me Comcast was free. I bought a foreclosure. I bought a foreclosure. I was told that it was free by a friend. I called Comcast. They had no earthly clue what I was talking about. I called Leland. I got never returned phone calls. I just said, basically, forget it. I've had Bright House in the past. And so I washed my hands of it and did Bright House. And to be honest, the last few months is the first time I've heard about how much money actually I really pay for cable, if I really think about it. And then just to touch on and I know you created something now to hand out to new residents.
There's a welcome package.
Right, which is great. It might have been nice when I moved in 2010 because I knew nothing about anything.
I say anything about I moved 2009.
Right. And just to touch on what you said, I will be honest with you, I have never paid to anything. I don't do PTA, I help in my kids' classrooms because of the clicks that form and that do happen. And if you're a member of any Facebook page that's out there right now, my God, who would want to come here? No offense, but who would want to be?
But
it is crazy on crazy. And
it is crazy.
It is true.
Well, to defend to a certain extent, if not for the Facebook pages, we wouldn't have all of this information. There are some people that go a little wild.
Yeah.
There are some people that do not show the proper respect. I will say that. But there is a lot of information that's come out. A lot of people are here because they recognize they have a common goal and a common problem.
Right, and I will say, without it, I probably wouldn't be here tonight.
Exactly.
But in that same regard, it is a lot of the reason that I've said, oh my God, I want nothing to do with that.
I think it's done what it needed to do. It brought some awareness to some situations.
Right.
And I think now a community website that does have a moderator that will keep the tone pleasant and respectful, but will still put out the information is absolutely necessary.
Just the Cypress Lakes webpage.
Yes.
That actually rolls me to the next question, which I call communication standards. Where do you stand, I'll start with Don Lewis. Give us 20 seconds to give a quick answer. Where do you stand on a central location, such as the HOA website, to post all updates or information pertinent to the membership? As a board of directors, what direction do you think we should take to direct communication to all membership, other than just mailing?
Okay, the website is out there. We use approximately 2% of it. I'm one of the administrators of it, but I can't touch it unless I get authorization from Leland Management and our current board. So I have not done anything with it. Although I've taken classes in it, I can see what it can do, and I'm telling you, you can almost do everything except slice bread and toast it. So we need that website desperately. That's a good way to communicate, and I am all for that.
James?
I'm very
The website's great. We don't use it. We don't utilize it at all. There's hardly anything on it now. There's been a few things added. I don't think Leland should be doing something. I'm not really impressed with them as a management company anyway. But for what we're paying them, I think they need to do a little bit more, including that. But I would also like to see an additional forum added to that, where that people can discuss topics and the board can discuss topics, but not be monitored by anybody within Cypress Lakes.
And
we should pay for outside monitoring.
And even neighborhood watch meetings should be on there.
Every month, calendar of events, every month, every
Be careful with the
day should
neighborhood
be
watch
on.
because it's not associated.
Oh, I see.
You gotta be careful.
Foster, 30 seconds.
I think the website is a great thing to have. I think that one of the complaints we've had in the community is a lack of transparency with what the board is doing, decisions that are being made, agendas that are coming up. I think we utilize this correctly. I mean, we can bring this community together a lot more. A lot of people, they'll feel disenfranchised because they don't know what's going on. They don't have to feel like they've been included. So education is the place you start. Then you start to build relationships. You got to start a conversation.
Great. Hey, Kathy?
Obviously, I'm all for the website, and I'm all for putting as much information on as possible and making it as interactive as possible.
I would say, I think we've got a lot of communication avenues out there, and they need to be distilled down to the smallest number that we need to work. For example, we should have a newsletter. It should be put together within community, with help from the community, maybe quarterly. We should have a site like Nextdoor that Abe Gal helped get involved in the community. It's limited to residents. You have to have an address in here. That would prevent people who are not in the community from getting involved and seeing stuff and trolling on these sites, in addition to social areas like Facebook and the main site for the community that can be improved.
Linda, 30 seconds.
Everything should be out there for everybody who wants the information. You should have a place where you can go and look and find anything that you want to find. The only thing I see on this is for bids. And I was told by the current board that you cannot put bids out there for everybody to see until they're accepted. Anybody that's a contractor in here, can you tell me if that's true?
I don't understand why that is. I heard that from the previous board, but
Because I had said that I had taped a meeting and I was going to put it out for the community, and they told me I could not do it because they were discussing actual bids.
yeah, I don't see why that would be. That sounds more like a policy than it does any kind of law or.
Because they said it was a state law, and I can't find it anywhere.
So, to prevent it from affecting the bid process?
That's what I think.
It would, that's what it would affect the bid process, but they've already got the bids, they've already closed the bidding, so you've got your bids. So, that would be the only thing.
I think there's a lot of things that have been said in the past that we may think that.
I know that we may find that's not true.
And more specifically, to make sure that's clear, is in that question is placing what's up for bid. This is landscaping, this is our scope of work.
You can put the
wants to apply,
You can put the companies out there, Jeff, that these are the companies we're considering, and then you can do your own research. Go and see and see the comments and everything that people have made about them. That would be something.
I think as far as the contracting goes, I'm just going to speak that for 2 seconds, that you cannot put what one company did versus another company because they're competitive with each other and they give you that information in confidence.
Right.
But you can put out everything else and you can say the bids range from X to Y.
Right.
And for me, it was more specific. I just wanted to know when landscaping's up for bid.
Right. Or the cable, which apparently no one knows.
Maybe I know someone from another HOA lived at did a really good job and said, hey, talk to Billy Bob's landscaping.
I do know landscaping has not been bid out since 2008.
Rebecca?
We've had the same company.
For a second.
I believe, I agree with what everybody else has said. I think that it's time that we have, 2 or 3 direct lines to the community that are upbeat and professional, and that all the information that is out there can be given out to the community so everybody's on the same page with different topics.
And is there?
I agree with just about what everyone has said, and I think that there should be an opening where that you're going through the homeowner association to put the information online. Any negative information that I've gotten about anything that's happening has all come from Facebook. It's all come from Facebook. And if I am a member of the board, I will only communicate not on Facebook, but through my email and telephone, because I don't want negative information.
Can I ask something?
Absolutely.
Say something? I don't want Facebook to go away, because what I see on Facebook and what's been valid and is good for me is, I need a plumber, who do you use? I use this person, things like that. I want to see that. What I don't want to see is personal opinions as far as, I was totally shocked, I just got on the other Facebook, there's two Facebooks, and I just got on the HOA Facebook, and I was quite shocked to see the negative remarks about candidates and about people, and I don't understand why anybody on the board has a right to say, I'm going to give my opinion on, I'm going to give my opinion on who I think we should go for. That's personal. If you want to talk about that on your personal Facebook and discuss it with your personal friends, that's fine. But I'm not sure why any one candidate can put out the names of who they think we should go for. That shouldn't even be.
That's a good question. So everyone's clear, people may be on Facebook, maybe they're not. Maybe they're watching this later, we're having this videotape. People who can't make it. There was a first community Facebook started, I think it was 2 years ago, Kathy, is that right?
The CLH, the one that was.
Which one's that?
No, it was probably,
At least
it was
three.
not a nine. It was probably when it first started. It was started by Kathy Keeler.
There's a board one.
Okay. And basically, this Facebook is run by homeowners. It has no affiliation with the HOA. And I think there was some negativity before I got involved in the Facebook, where board members had started another Facebook. Both Facebooks are not affiliated with the homeowners association. They're independent. They do not represent the HOA's opinions, to my knowledge. They could represent
Okay, so that could be
opinions.
our technique. Now, the one that I just went on, is this HOA?
It's
It
actually
says
run by
community,
Myler.
it doesn't say
Yes.
community association
Yeah.
for that reason. So, because I was under the impression just based on the wording and stuff that was, and that's not personal, that was personal.
Correct. It is a personal Facebook as much as the homeowners one is a homeowner's
But
Facebook.
that information is conveyed through that Facebook page.
Correct.
That the
Information
rest of the
conveyed.
community does is agreed to. And I just do want to say one quick thing. I understand emails as a means of communicating directly with one person, but that's not a really effective method for communicating with everyone. I think a part of what happened in the past is that private emails went back and forth between board members or between specific people, and things may have been misconstrued or changed based on who it is they were talking to. I think given information out through a community resident lockdown website gives everyone the same information, everyone the same feedback, and everyone the same opportunity to make decisions with the same information. Email's great for communicating about specific things, but everyone isn't privy to that information.
Sir, go ahead.
As important as electronic communications are, I wouldn't dispute that, still relationships are built from person to person. Is that the question I'm interested in?
Yes.
If the board has any notion of any kind of neat and efficient structure to either represent a village or villages, or villages have representatives for direct contact with a board member, this is how you're going to build community, is person to person. You can utilize all the electronic means, and that's fine. But relationships are built when you know somebody on a first-name basis, and you come to your house and eat, you share rides or whatever.
And I agree, and I just want to piggyback on that one thing, is both are fantastic. We had 15 volunteers go to everyone's house and put a notice, make sure every one of you had an opportunity tonight to come here and ask questions. So, but you know what? My neighbor lives behind me was one of the volunteers. I didn't know her before 3 weeks ago. I had no idea who she was until I had met her at the first forum. And I said, wow, you live behind me? That's crazy. But it's just like you said, you got to be in person. And now we have people, we know people, volunteers, who want to help the community and do these things.
Well, the only one way you do that is to form groups for each neighborhood so that you can have committees, because each neighborhood has their own problems. Not everybody has all the issues that someone does. You can form that committee, get to know your neighbors, then bring it to whoever is on the board and discuss those issues there. Have social events that will bring people together, because that's how you get to know people. I was on the social committee, I chaired it for 4 years. That's how I knew a lot of people in here, because we had so many events.
James?
We used to have something, village representatives here, and I know some people think they're still active, but I believe the board has stopped dealing with them, current board.
The board is not made the village reps aware of that, though. 'Cause I am
No,
a village rep.
I'm a village rep, but I have
Yes,
but we have no communication.
What I would like to see is if they're not instituted now, we're instituted those, and that way they can come to the board meetings and they can. I'd like to see participation from them. So if you can't attend a board meeting, but you talk to your village rep, it helps them know, how the rest of the community in that village is feeling, and then they can relate it to the board. Because the board's not going to be able to. Even if we can send the paperwork out, we can do the surveys, we can do all of that. And the surveys have been getting more and more responses, but still, I think it's 60-something responses out of 1,300 homes. So I think the personal interaction, I agree, the personal interaction needs to be there.
And remember, it's up to you to get involved. I mean, my plan is to have all these committees that people can volunteer for. And there's going to be a lot. So if you want to be on more than one, that'd be great. But it's got to have community involvement. And that's where you get to know each other, know what's going on in each neighborhood.
And it doesn't take long. I tried to calculate the other day how many people I knew or found out about in 1 year. It's over 60. And it was 60 more residents than I knew last year.
Yeah, does everybody understand we got village reps now?
That's what we were saying. That's what we were saying.
And I want to open it up. And remember, this forum is for you. And it's for candidates. But this forum has to be interactive and has to be, you have to get knowledge from this. Does everyone feel like they're getting answers to questions? Do you feel it's useful at all? Because if you don't, please let us know. And if there's another forum in the future, we'll change it. We want to make sure you guys get your questions answered. It's interactive. I want to open it up real quick to any other questions that doesn't pertain to anything we've gone over.
Okay, I actually have like 2 different questions I'd like answered from pretty much everyone up there. One of the questions is, how are you going to enforce rental agreements according to our guidelines? And what will you do to prevent someone from having to live next to a junkyard?
Can you say that one, the first one?
This is all one question. How will you enforce rental agreements according to our guidelines? And what will you do to prevent someone from having to live next to a junkyard?
So it would appear it almost.
And really, there's not supposed to be any subletting at all.
Right.
Is this the front or the back?
What?
Is this the front or the back?
Yes. That's the back, however, it's visible from people's yards. And no one should have to live next to that.
Well, I do know one thing, the board does have the authority to place fines on properties.
And I totally understand that. I went to, before I even went to the board, I went to Leland Management numerous times, like over probably 50 times. Sent them pictures, and I have even worse pictures at home that I didn't print out. That was like the latest that the last time I had to submit it in. I went to a board member and got turned down, and then I did go to Cheryl, who finally did something about it. But unfortunately, I went through all avenues. I just don't think that anyone should ever have to live next to that when they're paying these type of dues, and they're paying for a house, and they want their property value to stay and maintain. That's just my opinion.
The other problem is going to be with the rental agreements, and I have to bring this up. There's going to be something the Florida statutes are going to let us enforce, and then there's going to be something that the covenants are going to let us enforce. And if they're already in there, and they're already renting, to get to know it's going to be an eviction process. Not only that, you're going to have the owner of the home involved in that. So we need to look a little bit more at the legal portions of how that's going to happen.
Let's roll your question into how tenacious, if this is appropriate, how tenacious will you be to make sure that important covenants are followed so you don't have a situation with yours? I mean, is that fair?
I just don't want anyone to have to live through that.
I think we're coming down the line. Is it my turn?
Yeah.
We spoke at it.
Oh, that's okay. I just want to get the council somewhere. These violations are bad. I mean, we've seen worse in here. Matter of fact,
they were worse. That's actually better.
Yeah, but as far as the violations go, the way they've been handled is gotten the lawyer involved, gotten Leland involved, and we continue to pay for that. Every time this lawyer generates a letter and sends it out to one of these people, that's costing us money. So I think what the gentleman started talking about up front was communication. in my neighborhood, we talk to each other. And if you can get people to buy in, if you can get them to understand why it's important to follow these rules. Like education, James talked about education. Many people here don't know that if you don't have a board that pushes your violations, you can lose your property value by as much as 20%. There have been studies out there that will tell you you can lose 20% of your property value just because the board doesn't stick by the rules. So we have to start out with first educating people why we have these rules. First of all, we need to start out with are the rules right? Do they meet the Florida statutes? Are they compliant? Do they comply with each other? The CLs, the bylaws, all of this needs to make sure it's right. Then we roll this out to tell people what we need to do and why we need to do it. Not beat them across the head every time. All we do is send these people letters, and it costs us thousands and thousands of dollars in there. So, start out with communication, build a cooperative agreement with people.
Well, when they start cursing at you and you've never said a word to them, and they call the police, it's really not someone you want to communicate with.
It's the owner.
Oh, they got called quite a few times by actually the board, and they did nothing.
Was that the backyard or the front yard?
That was the backyard, but it was visible from my side yard.
And there's been other pictures. I know the neighbors went and moved next to Frank, and now they're doing some things in front of his house as well. So it's not as though the problem went away, it just shifted.
It shifted, however, it is a lot better than what it was.
Yeah,
And there's less families
it's nowhere near
involved.
as bad as it was. I think that, they're going from rental to rental. I think part of the problem is lack of communication, people not knowing what's expected, and I think the website being interactive and posting up the CCRs and having that information there, and maybe even just having a section, if there's repeat violations coming in, maybe a highlight for that month being, hey, did you know that you can't do this, or did you know that this is how this is supposed to be? Making sure that people are aware of what the problem is. But yes, the HOA can impose fines for violations, but the fines don't really have any teeth either. If it's a homeowner that doesn't live here, that's renting out to God knows who, then they're not going to care so much about other fines being attached to a house that they may or may not actually keep. It may be going towards a foreclosure route. I think that's where we need to come up with committees, and we need to come up with some people that are going to come up with creative ideas and ways of addressing this, because it's not going to be done through, the only way that you can attach a lien to a house is through the HOA dues. So we have to find a way of attaching the violations to the dues. Perhaps reducing the dues for people that don't have violations. My husband came up with this idea the other day. A discount. For those of you that don't have any violations within the last 90 days, you pay less. Maybe that's a way. I think there's a lot of people out there that have really great ideas for what to do with this. We need to find the ones that work, and we need to think outside the box. We're not going to be able to do it with the CCR and the lawyer. The lawyer's going to cost a lot of money. And again, if it's not attached to the dues, you can't attach a lien.
I think the two biggest issues that I see with, first regarding enforcement, from what I've seen, it's very spotty in terms of what Leland does. For an example, I've gotten 2 letters about a rust stain on my driveway that's about that big. I don't know how she can see it from the street. And yet, after cleaning up, there are all sorts of other things that go on. There was a house opposite us in Manchester that was just left, and it was awful. The people who lived next door to it moved in the last 5 months because they couldn't take it anymore. I had talked to them previously, and it's a sorry situation. I think there needs to be a more consistent enforcement, better balance of it. Again, go after the bigger ticket items more strongly. And don't worry if, okay, somebody had left a trash can out for a day or 2, but if you keep seeing it, then it becomes more and more people think they can get into things. With regards to the rental issues, I just the other day read the declarations again, and there's a large section there regarding limitations on rentals and about the rights of the association to conduct eviction based on the number of notices that an owner has received. If an owner receives, I believe, 2 notices of violations, the association can go and serve eviction according to the Florida statute. So, we don't even need to get the owner involved or whatever. We would have the power to actually boot people out and tell the owner afterwards, hey, your money stream is gone and you will be gone next if you don't get people to straighten this up.
Well, first of all, we all live in here, we all have to follow the rules, we all have to pay our dues, okay? The only way that you're gonna get to do this, you have a management company, and the board has to make sure if the management company are the ones that drive around here and do the violations, that they do it for everybody. Because there are many houses that do not get violation notices, and they really need them.
Is that who does drive, that Leland drives around?
Yes. Leland does it, and they're not doing their job. Bottom line, they're not doing their job, because I know people who have never got a violation notice.
Is that the only people that drive around and pinpoint things to send violation notices? Well, residents are able to send in violations.
Yeah.
Well, residents can call and the board members will actually go and check it out.
But I called about something one time, and they told me there was nothing I could do, I could call the county. That was Leland. Well.
Well,
there's also,
yes.
Liz, the clubhouse attendant, is now the LPM for our community, or is going to be. The current board is planning on bringing the CAM responsibilities in-house, and Liz, the girl who runs the clubhouse here, is the person who's expected to take that. Whether or not, I'm not sure how far along they are in the process, but she lives in another community and would be responsible for going around checking violations.
I just think the board should remind all vendors, including the management company, that they work for us. They work for us. We do not work for them. And they need to do what? Their job and their contracts.
People keep talking about the management, is that up for them?
Yeah, everything's up for review.
Everything will be up.
The only contract that I'm aware of that's not, well, every contract is up.
Every contract can be up.
Every contract except Comcast is on a 1-year basis. And I think they all are renewed for the most part.
You know what? All the contracts have the auto renew in there if they're not notified. Every one of the contracts are auto renewable after 1 year if they are not notified in advance.
Great, Rebecca? Again, just to finish up, the question was, how are you going to ensure that property value stays high by enforcing the CCRs and making sure that the yard doesn't look like that? Maybe she has to sell a home, and maybe she has to move. How do you sell that home?
On one side of the residents and the renters, I believe that perhaps we should have some kind of committee to welcome everybody, not only the renters, and have some kind of package in our hands saying these in English, because I know for myself, you go and look at the covenants and everything, and a lot of this stuff has all this legal information to it that you read it 3 times and you say, okay, I still don't understand what they're saying here. But if we had something that was clear cut, rules and regulations, don't do this, don't do that, you can do this, you can do that, and give it to everybody as a part of a welcome package when they came, that might solve part of the problem as for the fact that the people actually did get the information, you handed it to them, they didn't have to go on website and fight it out for themselves. On the other side, I think that we have to have some kind of, not laws, but covenants on renting units as it is today.
I think that what we need to do is look at our management company. The board can make all kinds of decisions, but if we've got a management company that's not doing its job, then we need to look at getting somebody that can. Because if they're the ones that have to make sure that things are done, then they should do their job. If not, then we need to find somebody else.
And Leland takes up about $72,000 of our annual dues. Is it 74? Yeah. 74,000. So they do quite a bit. There's a lot of things maybe you don't even see. But
that's just to be the management company. That's not including all the other charges that we're charged.
Every letter.
Every letter is charged. Every time they send something out. Everything. Anything they do, we are charged for that.
For that kind of money, it seems like they should have a full-time presence here.
They should, but they don't.
any other questions, people? One second. I just want to make sure. Was your question fully answered?
My question was fully answered. I had another one with that. So that stemmed on to what some of them said. So.
Okay. Give me 30 seconds.
That's fine.
Go ahead.
Okay, my question is pretty much, you guys are talking about money and dues and it costing us. I'd like to know literally if any of you have had any dealings with the HOA lawyers and if any of our dues have been paid out due to that. And if so, how can you justify it?
Can we just have a raise of hands maybe if you've dealt with the HOA attorney in some way?
So then the three raising your hands have been on the board, I assume, previously?
No, not all of them have been on the board.
No. And then the second part was?
What did our HOA dues pay the lawyers for, and how can you justify it?
You don't want to know.
Yeah.
Well, if we're paying, I just want to know.
I tell you, there are residents in here who have been served letters to shut up. Cease and desist talking about things in the community for once. Your money, my money.
We were sent letters that told us to stop talking, okay, about a certain thing. That letter charge was $95.
But that's legalities, like if you're talking about something that's in a lawsuit and they're wanting you to like.
No, this is not a lawsuit. No, this is totally different. This is just to be quiet and not talk about a certain thing, okay? Well, number one, I didn't know that any of them had rewritten the Constitution of the United States, the amendment that gives you freedom of speech, and if something happens, you can talk about it. We were sent letters more than once with attorney fees attached to that for $95. We did not pay those fees because it's not legal for them to do that. The only thing they can charge you for is if they take you to court and it's for litigation. They cannot send you a letter saying, you owe me $95 for sending you this letter telling you to shut up.
Except the board had, or we as the community had to pay that $95.
You paid the attorney to send that letter. Yes, you did. And there has been many letters.
In violations or collecting tax
There's a
too.
lot of-
Not supposed to be used for infighting among the community or people that
That's your
are
private
dissenting or disagreeing.
So if you do not answer that letter also, they give you a time frame. If you do not answer this letter in 30 days, then you will they will add money to that charge and send you another letter charging another fee plus whatever interest or whatever they want to put on that. So we went to an attorney, had an attorney answer it. So it cost us money, but we did not pay that illegal fee.
Can you tell us what it was about? Just kidding.
I think you know what it was about. Yeah, I can tell you if you want me to.
That's one thing I would like to do. I'd like to look into what we're spending for these lawyers and what they're currently being executed to do. You know, if they we may be spending a lot of money with these guys and they don't even need to be doing what they're doing.
We spent $18,000 in January according to the P&L.
And they're being used to represent people who, on personal basis, there are a lot of things going on in here with that money. We need to really look into it and stop it.
And hopefully to add legitimacy to your question. I don't say that's not the right thing. Hopefully add something to your question. That was just the wrong word. Hopefully to add something to your question is that if the attorney needs to send a letter, it's prepaid. So let's say that this house, the board said, you know what, we're going to send a letter to them, they need to clean this up. The HOA pays for that, and then they're going to assess that fee to this house. They must pay it. But it's prepaid, so we pay for that in advance, as far as I've ever known. And then we have to recoup that loss of sending that letter. Or it could be collections of dues as well. If someone has to pay their dues of a year, we have to have the attorney send a letter saying, please, you know, you owe us these dues, etc., interest penalties, and so on and so forth. So those are, if you want to call it prepaid, those are paid before. We may not even get a lot of those fees ever back from all the properties. So
I just have to say, I'm sure the 18,000 isn't just letters to the community. There's a lot of bank dealings going on for the foreclosure. So I don't want anybody to think that I'm sure it's all violation letters. I'm sure a lot of it has to do with the foreclosures and absent units and things like that.
Absolutely, we're really looking for that.
Great question.
And this towards James. So James, you're basically saying rather than spend that work if somebody has a couple weeds on their thing, it's kind of a silly thing to spend $95 to say, hey, do your weeds. Why not do it? I'm just saying those are like kind of
I would rather
versus a big thing.
I would rather see it come from the HOA being, just a form letter, get this taken care of on something small like that.
Yeah.
But when there's a massive, the whole front yard is dug up or something like that, well, then maybe if we're not responding to that first letter, then we have to take the next step. I'm not saying there shouldn't be enforcement, I think there should be a tier of it.
Right, I mean, I lived here almost 5 years, and I got one letter that had a couple little dots in my mailbox for us. Yeah, I just thought, and I go out of my way to try to keep my home right. And I was just really embarrassed, I felt terrible, I called. I got a new mailbox or whatever, but, and then across the street, the whole thing ripped off, they don't realize, it doesn't have.
That's what I'm talking about.
So my point is this, it seems a little bit unfair when you go after someone that's going out of their way to do the absolute best they can, and other people, the houses look like garbage, and they're allowed to. That's what I was saying. This, why would I didn't do 9 to 5. I did it right away at fault.
Well,
I looked right out and got the mailbox.
And the other thing is you don't know everyone's situation. You don't know if this particular person just lost their job. You don't know if they're going through a medical issue. You don't know anything anybody else is doing. That's why I say this should be a tiered enforcement. I would not jump down someone's throat because they haven't mowed their lawn and, then the letter goes out, oh, they just mowed it. I mean, that doesn't, to me, that doesn't make sense, does it? It's not good stewardship of your money.
Right, that's what I was kind of saying, because the mailbox thing is kind of silly, and when, of course I'll do it, but when there's like major stuff going on, like I know people are putting illegal pools in their backyard or something like that. No, I mean, there's stuff going on, you guys.
That's why I mentioned this, an enforcement committee, like say the violation committee that would go along and they'd find out your phone number and they'd call you and say that you've got a couple spots in your mailbox, and then you can go out and take care of it. So therefore, no letters, no charge to the HOA. I know we got the job done, we got the enforcement done, we got it cleared up, just by a phone call. And that's the first tier that you was talking about.
And it doesn't cost any money to the
No
association.
money to the HOA. Now, if it goes to the second tier, then we might have a letter. But that's if you don't do anything with it. So there are several phone calls. So there's things that we can do as a community.
But the approach of the board has always been get you for violations. What about positive reinforcement? What do we do for the community? We don't have anything to acknowledge people who have best yard of the month.
I think that's something that Amanda Murphy mentioned.
Say again?
I think that's something that Amanda Murphy mentioned of her thing, was doing like a yard of the month and.
Well, that was one of my ideas as well, to do a yard of the month. So it's an idea that many people have had, but we need to implement the idea. Have the idea and not, so the board is not giving us any money to do anything. Any of these ideas with the social committee, we've got equipment back here that's been in the closet for years now.
Yeah.
The popcorn machines and things like that for kids that we could use and help build this community, but it's been set aside. The board is not supporting these activities.
Okay, I'm going to try to go through these questions the way I saw hands up. And I'll tell you number 4. What was your name again?
Yeah.
Was it Janet?
Jen.
Jim, let me get with you. I had 3 others in front of you.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to try to do the best I can remember having in order. I think Abraham was first.
I have a question regarding our funds, Leland Avenue. Currently, from what I understand, they basically have a rubber stamp. And from my understanding, the treasurer is supposed to go ahead and sign our checks. What is your take on that? How do you feel about reviewing our bills, going through them? We continue giving them a rubber stamp.
Is that for anybody or is there a?
Anyone want to start?
I absolutely disagree with the rubber stamp item. I think the first thing that the new board is going to have to do is review every single issue that's on the current budget. There are certainly some expenditures that I saw that just doesn't need to happen. We don't need to have it that way. Should we have 2 signatures required? Is it a massive undertaking for a volunteer to go through and actually sign off on every single check and compare that to the bills and such? Probably. There is a monthly report that comes out to the board, matching that report to something that Leland's already put together or whatever management company would use, and ensuring that everything is on the up and up. Having 2 signatures on the checks before they go out is probably the better idea. This way there's a little bit of checks and balances. I don't think that I think Leland has way too much authority over us as it is. I don't think they need the checkbook as well.
Anyone want to add to that, or?
I know in our bylaws, the treasurer is supposed to have the checkbook in possession, okay? And I do believe that there should be 2 signatures on that check because you can't just leave that to one person. And then it would have to go through the 2 people, say whoever is the president and the treasurer. And then it could go to Leland, or not Leland, someone else, to actually get in their books. And then you get the monthly report of how many checks you write. We don't really have that many checks a month if you think about it. I mean, we have the regular utilities, we have that, but I don't think Leland should just have a rubber stamp and just use our money.
Well, the reason for my question is, they had a certain cap that they were allowed to go and spend on their own.
Right.
And that cap was increased.
Increased, yes.
And that's why I was asking that question.
It was increased to 2,000.
Yes.
Yeah.
The board had raised that, I think, from 1,000 to 2,000 to give them both that rubber stamp. And so that the treasurer and the secretary and the, on the board would not have to go out and do their due diligence and look at those items. Now, we've seen items out there that were not, did not belong to our HOA, that were paid for and hopefully returned. So there's been mistakes made, and if somebody was watching these